Black women feel, heal, grow, cry, and rise. You are a queen, and every queen is deserving of her crown. And that is actually a quote written by myself, and it actually features in the mouse mat from the collaboration with myself and Dreams and Purpose. Hello and welcome to the Toya Talks podcast. I am Toya Washington. If you don't know that already, where have you been? You're here now, that's all that matters. I am tired as always. Iron is low. Sugar levels are not great, but we move. Listen, I think part of the reason I feel so tired isn't just the iron. I always say that when you finish a job, well, in my case, you finish a contract assignment or you're changing jobs, it's always important to build in some respite, because I definitely feel as though if you go in as hard as I do, there is this catch up that your body does when it realizes that your pace is slowing down because you're leaving a situation. And then what tends to happen is you have this overwhelming tiredness, mental tiredness, psychological tiredness, physical tiredness, as your body tries to readjust to your new normal. And I definitely feel that's what's happening with me, 100%. Obviously, last week was my last week at my old role that has been the meat and potatoes of several episodes on the Toya Talks podcast. And my last week was just bizarre. It was bizarre in a sense that I kind of feel like, I don't know, I say white people, but I'm saying it from the context of where I work is very heavily white dominated, male and female, more so males, right? But even the coup, there's one black woman, Ola, and everyone else is white. And I just feel like the level of violence that white people possess on a daily basis, some white people possess on a daily basis in the world of work, is actually quite scary, because I'm tired just trying to survive. They must be absolutely floored just with all the craftiness and all the violence every day. It's just weird to me. I don't understand why people can't choose just to mind their own business and coexist with people. I just don't understand why there needs to be this blatant ag all the time. So my last week was relatively okay in comparison to kind of how bad it could have been. I've been in situations before where you're resigning, you're in your last week, and they make your life hell. They're clock watching you. They're trying to get every last drop of anything from you, And it really wasn't like that. I think the reality of me leaving has hit them, and hit them pretty quick when escalation started happening on my contracts. And I had to take a step back because I won't be able to see them through. And Natalie, who's obviously taken over from Deborah, she sent me a message again. This is the second time she's done this, but desperation comes in all shapes and sizes and forms. And she said, Toya, if you were to change your mind to stay, I wouldn't look at you any different. Nobody would, look at you any different. It'd be very welcomed. You know how you can go on Teams and you can just like someone's comment, but you don't respond? That's what I did. I did the thumbs up. I'm not doing this with you people, okay? I've told you I'm leaving. You constantly fact checking if it's true or not is really quite insulting. I'm a grown adult. When I tell you I'm done, I'm done. That being said, Seb is just white privilege. He's everything that is the definition of white privilege, and he's just managed to get out of doing any type of work. Apparently, I found out last minute that I'm handing over part of my contract to him. This is somebody who has no understanding of what I do, the industry, nothing. He's just here because he's a perm and he's, waggling that his perm finger and chatting shit. And something that I noticed is that I would go into meetings and he would pop up in these meetings. How he knew they were happening, I do not know. But I guess as part of the coup, he was doing market intelligence and trying to understand who the people were within the organisation to talk to get certain information. And anytime I'd go to a meeting, obviously he'd pop up there. And then say if it's a team meeting, he would say everything that I've said in a previous meeting to make himself look more intelligent. It would make him look like he's doing work. And all he's doing is repeating stuff from meetings where other people aren't in, where me and him are in, if that makes sense. And it kind of like led me to kind of do this episode, because I do often get asked, you know, Toya, how would you advise somebody who is not necessarily being credited for their work and is always like their ideas and their work has been taken and passed off as somebody else's? Like, what do you advise? I need to acknowledge that it's really shit feeling to feel that you work so hard and other people claim the glory for your work, or people are passing it off as their own, or people are acting as though your ideas and the things that you have worked hard to develop and the effort and time you've spent on something, somebody just rips off your ideas and passes it off as their own. It's happened to me several times in my career, but more recently this last week. And I've done a lot of work on the project. Like, I like, my name is against a lot of things. And obviously, I definitely feel that Seb is trying to make a name for himself. But the problem is, you can fake it for so long, but I genuinely believe that when you are falsely trying to hold yourself out of something, there's a time limit. And I definitely think that, or in this situation anyway, that I just had to be patient. And I know that sounds like weird, because it's almost like you're looking for something practical. Am I able to talk to somebody? Can I sit down and have a conversation with someone? But the thing is, you can't have a conversation with the person who's stealing your ideas, because they're very brazen that they're doing it. You can't then allow yourself to be provoked by somebody who does that, because what will happen is you will come off looking worse. And equally as well, what you're actually asking for is recognition for your hard work. As I have always said in every episode, or every other episode, or several episodes, our greatest superpower is for us to be underestimated. We are underestimated. And I've had to flip it and use it to my advantage, because where I'm underestimated, you will never see me coming. You're not even checking for me, because you're not even recognizing anything about me. So Seb is going into these team meetings now. So we had a team meeting every other day, and there were questions that were being asked against my contract, and it's for me to answer. Before I could unmute myself, Seb is answering them questions, and he's repeating things I've said in previous meetings. And you're hearing this Natalie woman, oh, that's fantastic, Seb. And I'm just like, what? And I'm sitting there thinking, this guy's actually mad. But there is a confidence that I have anyway. I have a career confidence in that I'm the one that does the hard work. I really know this stuff. He doesn't. He's pretending to know this stuff. So he needs me to feed into his falsehood. And if I don't, he's got nothing to bring to the table. So anyway, there was another meeting. It was held on Wednesday, an internal meeting. And it was also an opportunity for me to say bye to a few of my stakeholders. And there was a few topics that were raised. Ordinarily, I would be the one to answer. And I just kept quiet. And it was that awkward silence of about 2 to 3 seconds. And then one of the stakeholders says, oh, is Toya there? So I unmuted myself. I said, yeah, I'm here, but Seb is taking over, so I think Seb is probably best placed to answer this. And Seb was like, no, Toya, you go ahead. I said, no, Seb, you are leading on this project now, and therefore I think it's your voice that the stakeholders need to hear. Remember, I had my camera on, you know? Yeah. And I put myself back on mute. Seb said, oh, I don't have anything to add. Of course you don't. How can you add to 0? You're 0 already. You have 0 to add. It equals 0, Abby. Then we had the team meeting Thursday afternoon. And then the same question was raised within the team meeting. And everyone's waiting for Seb. Seb didn't say a word. Then Natalie was like, Seb, so. And then he said, oh, I'm sorry, I'm having Wi-Fi issues. Bullshit, you are having a Wi-Fi issue. Then Natalie said, Toya, what's your view? I gave her my view, and she said, oh, you know what, Toya? I actually agree with you. It's so sad that you're leaving. And you know one thing about Uber people, when you've caught them, you know when their tail is caught in a trap, they go red. I'm really happy that I'm a black woman, you know, because when I'm embarrassed, I don't go red. When I'm embarrassed, my eyes just get wider. Daisies. He just went red. And in myself, I just laughed and I said to myself, anybody who has to sink so low to pass off work as their own when they legitimately know that they've not done any of the work and they don't know what they're doing, rather than work collaboratively, you'd rather work from a place of falsehood. It really actually speaks to that person's character. I don't have anything to prove, and I definitely feel like it's a personal thing, kind of outside work, outside the realms of work, of developing yourself and understanding who you are and allowing your identity to grow, whereby you don't need to feel legitimized by certain people, especially the people you work with. I definitely think there is something beautiful and I think encouraging and motivational about being acknowledged for the work that you do. But again, you have to be strategic about certain things. I definitely feel as though, because this is my last week, how I would handle things had it not been my last week may have been a little bit different. So for example, if I wasn't working this notice period and Seb was kind of stealing my ideas and pretending and passing things off as their own, what I would do is start to send the stakeholders his way, and I would do certain work in the background but cut him out of meetings. I would be that strategic, because sometimes I feel as though as black women in the workplace, when we speak up, it's seen as being confrontational. We know that. So if I don't have the ability to use my voice, I have to use my actions instead to be able to communicate a message. Now, this last week, obviously, you know, he looked stupid and this, that, and the third. But ultimately, I think what I highlighted is that the stakeholders are not being left with a safe pair of hands. And that was enough for me. You know, some people seem to think when you're on your way out of a contract or a job, you need to light everything up. And I think part of it is frustration because you feel like freedom, that now you're free to kind of say exactly how you feel. But I actually think that's a bit cowardice as well. I think that on your way out isn't the opportunity for you to obliterate everything. I definitely feel as though you should challenge yourself more to be more proactive within a role rather than waiting until you're ready to leave to kind of light everywhere up. That to me is a short-lived, short-term feeling of gratification, when ultimately you know that what you're really annoyed and disappointed at is the fact that you didn't actively do something within your tenure. And I definitely feel as though every episode in the Toy Talks podcast is about giving you the tools to understand how to navigate certain situations and different situations and scenarios. But I definitely think it's important that we get credited for our work, but also it's about how you get credited for that work. What type of credit are you looking for? We talk about the feedback folder. That's the credit. You should be building that folder. You know, you should be in meetings. You don't have to speak in every meeting, but you need to challenge yourself to find your voice in certain meetings. I've told you guys before in previous episodes, you know, but remotely being in meetings with like a sea of white men and them just treating me like I'm invisible. And then when shit hits the fan, they recognise, oh, somebody's here. This could possibly be the full person. And then, obviously, I understand how to navigate stakeholders, right? And you go for the quick wins first. You gain their trust. You lay the grounds of foundation for the relationship, right? You understand what their drivers are and you leverage that to be able to get what you want out of a situation at work. That's how I operate. But one thing that I am really proud of myself is that even when I felt like I didn't have a voice, I made sure that I was heard. I found my voice in certain situations. You know, this is why I say to you, it's so important to become a subject matter expert, because in the world of work, you're constantly being challenged and you're going through imposter syndrome on a personal level, but you're constantly being challenged in the world of work. Like, you're being challenged about whether are you sure? You're being challenged about if your view is credible enough. Do you know what I mean? So you have to work on the foundation of who you are as a person and who you are attending work as. And you need to be solid in that, because the workplace and the people that you work with, especially people who do not look like you, will shape the foundation of everything that you think you know. And you have to be confident in who you are and who you're walking in as, if that makes sense. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't think that, you know, you're automatically going to develop confidence, but I think that you need to give yourself grace. You know, a quick win may be that you resolved something that was quite challenging. That is a win. That is still a win. That's still something that you had to do proactively to be able to classify that as a win. And I definitely feel as though when you're working in and amongst people who know your greatness, sometimes they know your greatness more than you do. I always used to be that person that self-doubt is a lot. Definitely growing up. I used to, you know, whenever I used to speak to my dad, I used to say things like, I know I'm stupid. You know, oh, I'm not very good at things like that. And my dad would always take the time to correct me. And he'd always say, how you describe yourself is how people are going to receive you. How you describe yourself is how people are going to receive you. And I never knew at the time what he meant. But I think when I look back at it, my dad correcting me was him reassuring me. And I think he knew that unless I changed the way I described myself, I'll be going into the office with Rottweilers and they would eat me alive. You know, sometimes you have to fake it till you make it as well. There's an element of that. But to not be recognised for your work, I definitely understand and recognise how that can also feel like a bit of a rejection as well, that you're not good enough for your ideas to be your own, and it's only palatable if somebody else kind of copies it and pastes it as their own. And I think what I will say to that is, number one, you've got to recognise also the limitations in certain people's characters who steal from others. Because when you're passing something off as your own, you're stealing something that doesn't belong to you. It has to go back to the original owner. And you have to be patient enough to recognise that at some point you are going to be seen and heard for the great work that you do. But you need to also be able to strategically navigate properly. You know, I'm not telling you to have a feedback folder so you can look at it and make yourself feel better. It's so that when there is discussions about your ability and how you've delivered, you're able to evidence hard proof. And the thing is, I find with working in and amongst white people, is they have really short memories. They will tell you you're absolutely fantastic on Monday. By Wednesday, they've already forgotten about it. And then when the year is done and they're talking about bonuses, they're telling you that you haven't done very well and all of this to justify why they're not giving you the bonus. When you whip out that feedback folder, the look on their faces, the reactions, they themselves won't, they'll even tell you, you know, the shameful ones, oh, I don't even remember sending that. Well, you sent it, bitch. You sent it, bitch. You bastard, you sent it. Look, I did it. Was your laptop stolen? So I'm hoping that encourages someone. I just felt really prompted to talk about that. You know, talk about the importance of not being disillusioned by people who pass off your work as their own, and to understand that there is an inadequacy within that person's character that has put them in a situation where, number one, they feel that their ideas are not good enough or what they do is not good enough. But number three, I don't want to say there's a compliment in it, but what I will say is, for someone to steal your ideas is because they know that theirs are not good enough. So you are doing something right. Your job now is to strategically be patient enough and wait for the right opportunity to find your voice so that people can hear that it's you. The thing is, don't underestimate human beings. Human beings are very intelligent. People are able to decipher very quickly somebody who's not being authentic. When you're being asked certain questions on the spot in a meeting, and up until that point you had all the answers and you were Billy Big Bollocks, and then suddenly you don't know anymore because that's not the part that you stole, you know? And equally as well, I think it's important that we recognise that no workplace is perfect. You're not going to find a perfect workplace. There's always going to be a situation of people feeling like they are entitled, white privilege. All of that is going to exist. I don't think I've ever heard of, because there was a point when I was in my younger years, I was actually looking for the perfect job. And I became really disappointed when I realised that it doesn't exist. Your job is to find a way to navigate strategically. And I kind of said it on TikTok when I was talking about career progression tips on TikTok, and I said, you have to have an objective for every role that you go into. You have to have a strategy. You have to know what that is. And I'm going to tell you this right now, and I know I've said this before, but those who have ears, let them hear. I didn't realise success in one job. I didn't. I realised success when I obtained certain objectives, achieved certain objectives, was able to take those learnings and move on to the next role. And as I was progressing in different roles in different organisations, the seniority came, as did the money, as did the recognition. And I think sometimes we get so fixated on the recognition because that's the reassurance we need to tell us we're doing a good job. But you know what? If you had personal objectives on a job and you had a strategy, you wouldn't necessarily always rely on that, especially because some of us are working in and amongst white people that don't even want to recognise our greatness. Some people don't. And part of the reason why some people pass off your hard work as their own is they don't want to recognise your greatness. And I feel like we have to turn that around. We have to change our mindsets in a way. Because I feel like if we sweat the small stuff, we become disorientated and unfocused on what we are trying to achieve. I think I stopped looking for acknowledgement from non-black people. I stopped looking for acknowledgement from white people because I realised I'm only acknowledged as long as I'm seen as valuable. And if I'm not valuable anymore, I'm discarded like I'm nothing. And that's happened to me several times in my career. So I had to get to a space within my mind whereby I had to be very selfish about my career. You know, I would definitely go on record to say that the last 14 months of my career has been eye-opening beyond anything. Partly because obviously we've been living through a pandemic and still are to some extent. And I think that I recognise how much people hate their lives and hate their homes, and they see work as respite for them. That's why they move around. Some of them move around very mad because they don't have any cojones in their own home. So they come with violence to work because they're very miserable at home. There's a lot of stuff I feel that I learned about people, organisations, team members, stakeholders over the last 18 months, 14 to 18 months. You know, when people are in their home and you're working from home and people are raising their voice over the computer. Are you shouting at me in my house? What's all that? You know, I definitely feel as though as individuals, we have to take the learnings from the pandemic and from lockdown. Like, and when I say take the learnings, you know, even when you move on to other jobs, you're like, fundamentally, the blueprint is still the same. Non-black people, white people, the blueprint is the same. It's not marginally different. I mean, you only have to listen to some of the dilemmas to recognise that actually we're experiencing a lot of the same things, just in different ways, or there may be different nuances, you know? So, obviously, a lot of people have reached out to me, you know, congratulating me on leaving this current contract and things like that, etc., etc. There's parts that I haven't actually mentioned, and it's about kind of pastures new and what that looks like. So obviously, I told you guys last week that I was consulting on the side for another business anyway. So they've actually sent me a renewal, and they want to renew me and my services until June. And that's not really going to happen. I think I'll stay for a month and then I'm out. And the market in my industry is very buoyant. Again, you know, I'm leveraging a lot of relationships that I've acquired over the last few years. Obviously, I've had a great opportunity to have worked for some amazing organisations. So my experience has opened a lot of doors for me. And this is why I always say to people, listen, you know, when it comes to your career, do not pigeonhole yourself, please. Do not pigeonhole yourself. So, for example, don't just work private sector. Don't do that. You know, I had a phone call last week from a young lady. She rang me. She said, your CV is so interesting. And you know what? That made my heart dance, because it meant that, number one, it's not something they see all the time. Number two, it's a conversation starter. Number three, I'm more likely to be remembered for certain roles because my CV is interesting. I've worked in the public sector, private sector, charity sector. And I will go on record to say that my career spans across all those sectors. That's why when people talk about corporate world, I'm not in the corporate world anymore. I was in the corporate world and I left, you know, and I have had the opportunity to work for different organizations. And more importantly, it's the experience across the board. You know, no one can turn around and say, oh, you know what, you've only got private sector experience. Well, no, I don't. I have a lot of public sector experience. Actually, I've worked in the charity sector before. And whenever I'm in interviews and I'm giving examples, I'm drawing from those different sectors. The worst thing you can do is pigeonhole yourself, because the way I operated in my younger years is I understood that, and this is how I used to see it, non-black people, white people are looking for a reason to tell me no. So I'm going to have to make sure that I make it difficult for them to say no. That was always my mindset. So when it came to certain organisations that I applied for and stuff, you know, me and my husband, we have a bit of a joke, and he says that where I've worked in the past, it's like a shopping list of designer bags, right? So you've got your Louis Vuitton, you've got your Prada's, you've got your Burberry. That's how my CV looks, yeah? I have made sure that I have an array of organisations I've worked for. So you guys know, you know, I've worked for Goldman Sachs, PwC, Inmarsat, Capita, and that's naming a few. There's some organisations I've worked for that I will never actually mention on the podcast, just because they're quite high profile, I would say, quite high profile. And I think it's important. It was always important. Well, I think it's also important that you understand why you're going into an organisation. So some people at the time, they never understood why I left Goldman Sachs. They were like, oh my God, how could you do that? I think one of my friends even went as far as saying to another, and I say I think because I didn't hear it out of his mouth, said it to another friend, Toya doesn't understand what she's been given. I was never given anything. I went through 3 rounds of interviews, you know, and this is the thing, isn't it? Some people think that you're given something, but as black women, we're never given anything. We have to give people a reason to not say no. We have to make their decisions difficult so that we're able to be seen as their only option. You know, they may not like us, but we're best in class at what we do. So we are your only option because we are that great at what we do, because we've had to extensively educate ourselves and gain a lot of experience to be in a position to be called for an interview. So I missed my point now, but I say this all to say that, you know, the calls I've been getting have been amazing. Yeah. And I was actually recently offered 3 different roles, 3 different organisations. And I've said to you guys, there was a lot of learning lessons from my now previous role. And there's a lot of stuff that I knew already, but there was a lot of stuff to learn too and reinforce things that I knew. And I'm not going to sit here and talk about the interview masterclass and not live by it. I live by everything I teach. I'm going to tell you this right now. When I go to interviews, there's a 98% chance I'm going to get the job. The 2% is either I don't want a job, or the person who's interviewing me realizes I know more than them and they can't afford to have me in their role. It's always one of those 2 things. Because when I'm applying, I know why I'm applying and I know where I'm applying. I've done my research. I've had a conversation with the agency or with my contact or whoever it is. Do you understand what I'm saying? That's where I'm at in my career now. So the 3 roles that I was offered, taking the learning lessons over the last 14 months, I have to be selfish. And I have to be selfish to an extent that it needs to make sense for me. From the money to the contract, everything has to make sense. And for me, it's fastest finger first. Whoever gets through the stages, so whoever's done the background checks and everything they need to do, whoever comes to me first with a start date is where I'm going to go. And I'm going to keep them hot on the cooker. Yeah, because if I don't like one, then I have other options. And this is why I say, as a remote worker, it just works, man. It just works. I don't have to make excuses as to the reason why I have to sneak off because I've got an interview, or I have to change my clothes in the toilet so nobody knows I've got interview, or I have to go and hide in one of the side rooms because I've got interview quietly whispering like a goat. No, I'm remote working, honey. I just block the time out of my diary. You know, there was one time I blocked it out. I said, going to the doctor's surgery. I didn't go to no doctor's surgery. I blocked time out of my diary. Meditation. I wasn't meditating. I blocked one out of my diary, having quiet time. Who? Me? No, darling. I wasn't having a quiet time. I was having interviews. And the industry that I work in, but just the world of work in general, is changed. It's changed in the sense that I've never seen it as it is now, where the leverage firmly sits on the side of the employees, where people are walking out of jobs and walking into other jobs because now they realise, actually, you know what? I've spent time and sat with myself in this organisation. It doesn't work for me. It doesn't work for me. People are creating options for themselves, and organisations are creating options for you. Because certain organisations who thought that their pool of employees was small because they had to recruit within their area, i.e., say, for example, within London, they're realising actually you can recruit internationally. The only challenge will be the time difference, but you work past that, right? So organisations are realising that they've got a bigger pool of candidates. If you feel like you've got a bigger pool of candidates and candidates feel like there's a bigger pool of jobs, that means that that makes for a buoyant job market. And I personally, in my field, and a couple of my friends' fields as well, who work in different industries, they've been saying the same thing. It is buoyant. And so I've had various interviews, and I got all of the interviews that I was, went for. I've been offered 3 roles, but there's one role in particular that I accepted for the purposes of this podcast because I wanted to use it as content. I had no intention to do this job. None. I just knew it'd make good content. So I had an interview for a particular organisation, and I'm going to be honest, I was being a snob. I was, because I was like, do they know where I've worked? That was my attitude. Hey, I said, Toya, you're just being too much now. So anyway, I had the interview, and literally, remember I've said to you, do your due diligence from the beginning. You need to start your due diligence from the point in which you've applied or an agency is contacting you about a job. When an agency contacts me, the first question I ask is, have you worked with them before? Have you placed anyone there? That's the first question. Number 2, what is the hiring manager like? Now, they can lie to you, but they're not expecting you to question them. Agencies don't expect you to ask them those type of questions. They call you thinking that you're just going to be so grateful for a call. That's not my attitude towards them. I have a podcast episode about managing agencies. Yeah, go and listen to that. When an agency calls me, a contact calls me, they're going to get it. You're not just going to come tell me, oh, I've got this great opportunity for you. And Jesus will be resurrected again, Abby. No. You're not going to create milk and honey for me. No. I need to understand what I'm walking into. So part of your due diligence starts even before you've been offered an interview, because you need to mentally start preparing yourself for the possibility that you're going into an interview. So for this particular role, I said to the agency, have you worked with them before? And they said, no, we haven't placed anyone there before, but we have been looking for some time. I said, what's some time? They said about 3 months. That's alarm bells. This is a buoyant market. Why is it taking you 3 months to find somebody? Either the talent that you need is not very big. So, for example, if you're looking for somebody who has worked, for example, in defence contracts, there's not a lot of us that have. I've worked with defence contracts before, so I understand the pool of candidates is small. Or it could be that this particular organisation are just very picky, and they could be picky for a number of reasons. Picky and problematic. PP. See that alliteration there? Anyway. So I asked a couple questions, and I could see that this is her first time working with them too. Apparently they had a really good relationship with a particular company, so like a sister company, and that's how they got the role. So the day rate was okay. It wasn't less than what I'm on now. It was good, okay. And it's remote, so ticking boxes. Anyway, So as soon as they saw my CV, literally within 2 hours of submitting my CV, the agency submitted my CV, the agency were calling me to say they want an interview with you as soon as possible. For me, yeah, I do take that as encouraging because it's telling me that my CV is speaking, yeah? And you need your CV to speak. This is the reason why I have the CV masterclass, and I literally pour all my experience into those masterclasses. Like I said, I live by what I teach. I get 98% of interviews. Therefore, I'm pouring 100% into the interview masterclass for you. If you decide that you don't want that, then you can't complain to me that you're not converting them interviews into a job offer. Because for me, my interviews are converted into job offers. So I'm only ever going to feed that into my community. Do you know what I mean? Anyway, so the day of the interview, I'm using my iMac desktop, and as I've logged on, I think it was is it Zoom or Teams? I think it was Teams. Before I even had a chance to say anything, the man was like, "Oh, hi Toya, can you switch your camera on?" This is before I've even said hello. He doesn't even know if I've joined properly yet. He doesn't know if my mic's working. He's telling me I should switch my camera on. So already I know that this role is heavily focused on camera on in camera. No problem. So on my camera, I said, "Oh, I'm so sorry, Luke. Obviously I was logging on and I hadn't quite logged on yet. That's why the camera wasn't on." "Oh, no, it's fine." There was another lady with him, lovely lady, and basically they need a senior commercial contract manager to come in and whip their contract management into shape because it was all over the place. And also they're recruiting a team, so the contract management function is quite a new function for them. It's only been operating for like 2.5 years. It's still relatively new. For example, contract management systems, IT systems, they were rolling it out. So for them, it's still quite new, and in the grand scheme of things, it is quite new for them. So as I'm doing the interview, every time I'm being asked a question, this man is cutting me up before I've finished. So already I know that you've got on-camera mentality, you're impatient, and you're rude. You don't know me from nowhere, and even if you knew me from somewhere, you're still rude. So I said to myself, okay, this is also the type of person, because he's now looking for the help of a contractor, this man is going to bleed you for every pound you invoice him for. You know when they say value for money, this man is getting value for every penny. Do you understand? So anyway, the interview went well. They were asking me certain questions. Some of these roles, they'll be asking you competency questions. And I just think that's so archaic. Have a conversation with somebody. Competency questions, to an extent, okay, I can try to understand it. But organizations need to move away from that because you've got someone's CV. They must be competent enough for you to feel like you need to interview them. So asking them, what would you do in a situation where you have a difficult stakeholder? These are all bullshit. It's all bullshit. What you need to be asking a candidate is what they've delivered. How did you deliver? What steps did you take to That one is a bit more. And as a contractor, to be honest, I shouldn't be having an interview over 30 minutes. If I'm having an interview over 30 minutes, that means that this job is while I did. This interview went for 35 minutes. I said, Toya, you're being picky. Let me pick on the pickable. Yes, I have to pick it. So anyway, after the interview now, so the interview, say, was like on a Wednesday afternoon. Thursday morning at 8:30 a.m, the recruiter's ringing my phone. I said, what's all this? I picked the phone. Toya, I don't know what happened in that interview with Luke, but he called me 3 times yesterday, but I was busy. And he's called me again this morning. I said, this morning, but it's 8:30. She said, I know, it's very enthusiastic. In my head, I said, very problematic. They'd like to offer you the role. I said, they'd like to offer me the role. She said, yeah. I said, oh, okay. She said, oh, would you accept it? I said, I don't know. I need to see the contract. I'm not too sure. Toya, I need to say something else as well. I'm very embarrassed. I said, oh, okay, what is it? She said, the role was advertised as, I'm going to give you an example, yeah? The role was advertised for $850 a day. However, they can only offer $800 a day. I was like, pardon? I said, but that's really unprofessional that you advertise a role for a certain amount and then you deduct £50 off. But they must have known what their budget was to be able to go through the agency to advertise the role. And when you're getting an interim, you need to know what your budget is because you need to understand how long you're going to have that interim for. So if you're having to put a business case together for funding, for example, you need to be clear about how long that person's going to be there, how much you're going to need. So is this a case of mistake or is this a case of trying to save money because we're getting to the end of the financial year? She said to me, you know what, Toya, I can't even answer that question because I don't know. I just know that he can't pay, for example, $850 a day. So then I said, okay, no problem. She said, pardon? I said, yeah, no problem then. Let me see the contract. Let me be really clear. I knew that I wouldn't be in that role for 3 days. I'm telling you, I knew. I've been doing this for too long, whereby my due diligence is strong. You understand? I can smell bullshit from 5 steps away. I know what it smells like. All these things are red flags, but I thought, you know what? I'm going to bring this to the podcast. Let me give you a real live practical example. So we've got the red flag from the interview. We've got the red flag. Now you're taking £50 off. That's a red flag. That means that this type of organization, this type of manager, let's whittle it down to the manager, is indecisive and can't be trusted. Because as candidates, we have to trust that when you advertise a role for, especially when you're actually putting the figure out there through an agency, we have to trust that you're going to honor that. If you can't honor that, that speaks of integrity. That speaks of integrity. So the contract came through and I said to Kay, Kay, I'm not even going to be here 1 week, but I need to demonstrate to my podcast listeners that if you do your due diligence from the beginning, you can make informed decisions so that you can at least limit the impact of some of these traumatic workplaces. So we know that we're going to go through a lot anyway, but we need to sometimes be able to know when to walk away when something's not ours, because there's a better thing waiting for us. So anyway, when the contract came through, I rang the agency. I said, listen, I don't work on my own personal laptop. They need to send kit. The agency was like, yeah, we completely agree. When she spoke to them, they said, no. They don't send kit for contractors. Contractors have to use their own equipment. So I said to the lady, I said, well, I'm not really comfortable with that. I said, first of all, I don't know why organizations do that anyway, because, you know, like personal data, all of this. But why should I have to labor my own personal IT to then provide you with services? That doesn't make no sense to me. I said to the lady, I said, during the pandemic, they were using courier to send equipment. Let's not lie. Are they trying to claw back that money? What's all that? Anyway, she spoke to him and then he asked to speak to me. So he called me and he said, oh, that is their governance process. They don't send a kit out. I said, well, I'm not really comfortable with that. I said, I'm not comfortable that you don't send kit out, and I'm not comfortable that you knock £50 off the day rate just because you can. And it feels as though all these things that you're doing, it feels as though you're trying to take away from the essence of being a contractor. Because I'm not a perm and I'll never be a perm. So I just want to make that clear. He said, oh, unfortunately, that's what they did. I said, okay, no problem. So I called the agency back and I said, okay, proceed. She was shocked, you know. I said to Kay, Kay, I won't even be here 1 week. I know that. I'm just doing this for content. Let me tell my listeners the madness that's happening outside. Because when you tell people you're a consultant, they get it. Oh my God, I want to do that. You need to know what's going on, because it's not much different in terms of violence and wild behavior. It's not much different to that in a perm. The only difference for me anyway is autonomy. I like autonomy and I like to be free. That's why I'm a contractor. I've got commitment issues to perm roles. I don't want to commit. You understand? I want to be here 6 months, here 9 months. Vamoosh. 9 months, vamoosh. I'm not interested in doing your courses. I'm not interested in coming to your team building exercise. I'm not interested in all that end of year review. I'm not interested in that. I want to be a contractor. I want to deliver and I want to get out and get paid. That's it. So I spoke to the agency. I said, I'm not happy with it, but I want it in writing. That is their policy. They sent it over, and then she got it in writing. We proceeded. So they did all my checks and everything. It came through within like 2 days, obviously. So now they sent me the stuff, the program to put on onto my computer. This platform. It was just so archaic. It was just bullshit. My Mac was even rejecting it. Anyway, fine. So at one stage it wasn't working. So I emailed him. It was probably like 11:30 at night. I just emailed him to say, oh, on Monday, can you let me know, da 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 da. Do you know that this man responded to me? He said, oh, Toya, I just got your email. I know you said that I should respond tomorrow, but if you're available now, I can call you. 11:30 at night. You're going to call me. I said, this man is a problematic somebody. I just ignored it. In the morning now, he called me like 8 o'clock in the morning. I ignored it. 9 o'clock, I called him. I said, can you sort out this thing? This application is what you asked me to put on my computer. Had it been your own personal computer, we wouldn't be having these problems. Anyway, long story short, we managed to fix it. He put a meeting in my diary to meet the rest of the team. Then he said, oh, Toya, don't worry. I've put a 3-hour meeting for us to do a handover. 3 hours. I didn't even say anything. So when the meeting came now, this man is teaching me how to use the intranet. I swear to God, I swear. The intranet. He was going around telling me where things were. And in my head, I'm like, I'm a contractor. Why do I need to know where your HR policies are? Can you see we're having problem? Can you see? But I'm not surprised because the red flags were already there in the beginning. The switch your camera on, taking £50 off the day rate, insisting that you use your own laptop. At that point, that's when you walk away or you weigh it up. Can I tolerate this person? Am I able to work here for the duration of this contract? Or can I find peace somewhere else? And the thing is, some of you place yourself in situations where you don't even have the option because you don't do the due diligence enough or you don't do it at all. And what happens is when the madness then starts to manifest, you get caught off guard. You shouldn't be caught off guard because one thing is their blueprint is always the same. Their madness will always show up in the beginning because that's who they are. They don't pretend because they don't have to pretend. For them, their white privilege is privileging. So they don't have to ever pretend. It's about whether you are able to identify where the madness sits and what you're able to tolerate. So after about 30 minutes, my computer started. I say my computer, but I think maybe it's just the internet. And he couldn't hear me properly. So he will say something. He says, "Oh, Toy, can you hear me?" And I'll be responding, and he couldn't hear me. So what I did is I switched off my camera. Toya, your camera's off. Your camera's off. He's shouting. I said to myself, "No, I'm not doing this." I said, "Excuse me." I said, "Luke, maybe the internet's playing up on your side or on my side. I'm not really too sure. But I had to switch the camera off because now you can hear me properly, can't you?" He said, "Yes." He goes, "Yeah, but the problem is I can't see you." I said, "But why should you see me? If you're talking and I can hear you, isn't that more important?" Then he said, "Oh, shall I continue with the internet?" I said, "Well, I don't really see how that is pertinent to the role." I said, "I'm not a perm employee and I'm not going to accept any perm role here. I'm a contractor and I'm contracted for 6 months. So you showing me the intranet versus actually giving me a handover. I think the handover is probably more important. You get more value for money." Then he said, "Oh, okay. Let me show you where we put all our stuff." So they have like a repository. And I've used that system before. So he was going over it. Again, he can't hear me properly because of the internet or whatever. And then I said, you do know I've been a super user of this particular repository. Oh, so you don't need me to show you then? I said, no. I said, I thought, Luke, you said you had handover. He said, oh yeah, but he just wants to make sure I'm bedding him. I will bed in properly. This is day one. You're putting a 3-hour meeting. I don't understand. Anyway, I switched my camera back on again. And he goes, oh, there you are. And then I just thought, nah, I ain't doing it. I was like, at that very moment, I'm not doing it. Anyway, I said to him, Luke, this has been a very long meeting and I need a break. He said, okay, no problem. He was like, I'm going to put another meeting in later today. This is intensity. But am I surprised? No. Because when you were telling me at 11 o'clock at night when I sent you, 11:30 at night when I sent you something, that you're going to call me, I knew you were intense, you had a problem. But some of you overlook the telltale signs and the red flags and hope it's going to change. The behaviours are not going to change. It will just be more magnified now because you're working with them face to face. When you're in an interview, it's just smoke and mirrors. You have to be able to decipher what is real and what is not real, what they're trying to sell me versus what the reality is. Remembering early in that day, when he was introducing me to the team remotely, he was giving them updates on recruitment. And he was saying that they're finding it very, very difficult to recruit. He said, oh, every time we think we're going to give somebody an offer, they reject the offer. There's something going on there, you know. And he's saying it in front of me as a contractor. I've been there for an hour and this is what I'm hearing. But at no point are they thinking, oh, maybe it's us. They're saying it's the candidates. No, it's not the candidates. This is the candidates market. So it's you guys. So anyway, I called the agency. I said, this is all. No, I'm not doing this. I said, number one, I've told you guys already. No kit is a problem. I need kit. And I work on a MacBook, an iMac or a MacBook. So it's not going to work. And secondly of all, I said, he's raising his voice because I'm not putting my camera on. I said, who's he talking to? You can't shout at me when I'm in my house. You can't shout at me outside my house. I'm not doing it. I said, the worst part of it is I'm stomaching certain things knowing that it's out of order. I said, you can't deduct £50 off someone's day rate just because you feel like it. Then on top of that, you're not sending kit. On top of that, you're shouting. On top of that, you're wanting to call me at 11:30 at night. I said to the recruiter, I'm sorry, that's not going to work. She said, you know what, Toya, I 100% agree with you. I was actually a little bit surprised because, you know, agencies tend to get a bit more defensive of their clients. She wasn't. Because I think for her, the way she's looking at it is this is a long-term relationship with me and her. Clearly, she knows I'm good at what I do. Clearly, she knows that I'm worth my day rate, 100%. And they're getting commission at the end of the day. So the more they get me, or the longer I stay in a role, the more they benefit. It works both ways. Don't let an agency try and gas you to make themselves look like a savior. They're not savior. You two are saving them because you being placed and working a contract or working in a job, even if you're placed as a perm, you do know that they get a bonus. They get a bonus. So it depends how the contract is constructed with the particular organisation. If you're there for 6 months, they usually get a percentage that is paid, like an admin fee. It's got nothing to do with you. And then if you're there like a year, they get like the rest of their fee. It's like a fee structure that they work. Yeah. So these agencies need you as much as you need them. Let's just get that. And right now, it is a contractors market. It is a employee market. So in as much as they're calling you with this great grand opportunity, there's many opportunities in the market, especially the development of tech as an industry, and also the ability for us to access information through social media. Oh my God, we're really seeing the working world very differently now, you know? So anyway, the agency, she understood, you know, I was very forthright, I was very honest with her. Then when I was speaking to Kay, Kay was laughing. Kay was like, Toya, this was 4.5 hours. I said, yeah, because I knew it wasn't going to last a week. This was content. I need to teach, educate, and guide my fellow Black queens. Therefore, sometimes you have to put yourself in that practical situation to be able to come out and give testimony. This is a testimony, isn't it? So the next day, I got a call from the agency. She said, oh, Toya, you're not going to believe this, but Luke's manager, he said he can get you an IT kit. I said, of course they can. I said, of course they can. Oh, Toya, also just to let you know, they said that the £50 they were gonna take off. they're not doing that anymore. So it's going to be, for example, $8.50 a day. I said to her, I know my worth. That's why I'm able to use my voice. I know my worth. That's why I'm able to advocate for myself. I said, if it was maybe a contractor new in the industry, they'll be suffering. I said, I'm going to give you feedback and I would like you to feed it back to them. She said, yeah, of course. I said, first of all, you do not treat contractors like that because we talk. Contractors, we talk. We have our forum to talk. That's number one. Number two, there are some organizations that won't send you an IT kit, and I understand that. But this is not one of them. This organization has gone through a lot of scandals, a lot of auditors. They've gone through a lot. So why they would have you working on your own laptop or computer, I don't know. Whether or not you're using one type of program, still, it doesn't make sense. Yeah? This organization needs to send kit. And they're robbing Peter to pay Paul. That's why they don't want to send that kit. Now they're saying they want to send kit so that I can change my minds. Because they know that me walking in there, I'm going to make a difference. They know it. You know when somebody is of substance. So let me get this right. It's taken me to tell you that I'm not interested in a role for the IT kit to come out and the money to be added. I said, no, I don't want it. I'm not interested. She said, oh, they're going to be really disappointed. I said, well, not as disappointed as me if I had really wanted this job. Not as disappointed as another candidate would be to be treated in this way. I said, but the thing is, I know my worth enough that I can walk away from this. But other people don't. And what will happen is you as a consultant, you as an agency will burn your bridge with that particular candidate. Or you'll risk finding yourself in a position where 6 months you're not going to place anybody. I said to her, you're not going to place anyone there, you know. Not with this attitude that they're doing. You're not. That's why it's taken them 3 months to find someone. They've been picky because they know there's a lot of bullshit where they are. So they need to pick the person that they think is strong enough to deal with it. And they thought I was strong enough to deal with it. And whilst I am strong enough to deal with it, I'm also strong enough to tell you when it's time to walk away. She said, Toya, I agree. So the reason I'm sharing this with you is, number one, when we talk about due diligence, can you see how doing your due diligence in the beginning allows you then to see things for what they are in HD? There's nothing in Luke's behaviour that's any different to what I saw at interview stage. There's none whatsoever. It is so unprofessional to advertise a role for whatever the amount is, that when it comes to offering the person, they say, oh, we need to take money off. That's bullshit. You need to run. Especially if you think that this is a job whereby you're going to be getting bonuses. No, you're not. They'll be finding every which way excuse to dodge giving you bonus. For example, if you're perm, that is. As a contractor, that is a no-no. You know there's like unwritten rules? That's one of them. You don't do that at all. That is not even a red flag. That is a loud siren. Run. I've been offered 2 other roles. So in total 3 roles. I've been offered 2 other roles. So around that time, I was offered those roles. So I've asked to see the contracts and stuff. I'm going through like due diligence, approval process, all that type of stuff. And I'll make a decision about which one I want. I haven't decided yet. And that's the truth. They've both offered me the role. They're asking me which one. Obviously, they don't know about each other. And if I wanted, I could do both at the same time. Let's really be real. But I only want one role. But the way I look at it is I might start one, see if I can tolerate them. And if their madness is not too bad. And if it is, or if I think, this is not really for me, I can jack it in and take the other one. Do you understand? You have to create opportunities for yourself. Options. I've got options. There is nothing more freeing than having options. Some of us are still in that mindset of boxing yourself off. Do you remember how we started this? I told you that I get a lot of compliments about my CV. Your CV is so interesting. I've created options for myself by not boxing myself in a particular industry. I can work in tech. I can work in professional services. I can work in government defence. I can work in outsourcing. I can work in digital. I can work in all different industries, because I have spread my net of experience far and wide. What really disappoints me is when somebody will, for example, they'll be in one industry for 7 years and then wonder why they can't get a job outside their industry. Even if you're in that job for 7 years, what have you been doing outside that role to be preparing yourself for another industry? If you don't have strategy, you will not be successful in the world of work. If you don't have strategy, you won't. What do you define as success? For me, success is having options. Success is earning a certain amount of money. Success to me is being able to be my own boss. Success to me is having the autonomy to decide what I want to do in each contract and how I want to do it. Now, don't get it twisted, yeah? Like I said to you guys, no job is perfect. You can go to an interview and actually go amazing, get there, and the person is devil's right hand. I get that. But at least 9 times out of 10, you can see things really early. My objective in this role is to make sure it's a CV builder for 2 years, gain experience in this industry, do so-and-so course that I'm paying for myself, and be able to work on so-and-so project. Those need to be your personal objectives. Once you've achieved those objectives in a role, you need to move on. You need to move on. Now, I know some people will say, oh, there's certain industries, you can't be there for 2 years. It's too less of a time. I put it to you that I believe the world of work has changed. I think you can explain things away. You can logically bring explanation to things. I was asked recently, how come, and they were looking at more my perm roles. I'm a contractor. Why are you looking at my perm roles? I don't understand. Oh, I can see from your perm roles you've not stayed anywhere longer than 2 years. I said, yeah. I was preparing. I was using my perm roles as a training ground to being a contractor. They don't even know how to respond to that. Oh, so in terms of contracting, would you say that when you're renewed, you usually accept? Well, it depends on the organisation, it depends on the project, and it depends on the terms and conditions. You can't ask me them questions. You want me to give you a blanket response. I don't know if you're mad. I don't know if your organisation is madder. I don't know. So I'm hoping that what you've taken from this is, number one, understanding how due diligence done early can save you a lot of pain, can save you a lot of headache and aggro. And whilst nothing is perfect, what is important is that you're able to assess whether you can manage certain environments. There's certain environments that I'm not willing to do. So for example, I'm not going to go back to corporate. No, I'm not interested in corporate world anymore. That corporate world, I'll be having heart palpitations and the front of my hair will be landing on the floor. I'm not interested in that. Yeah. So for example, if Goldman Sachs reached out to me to go there as a contractor, work on commercial contracts, I'm not doing it. I'm sorry. Now, if your day rate is astronomically high, I can give you 2 days a week, but I'm not giving you 5 days. And I feel confident enough to negotiate from that position. Why? Because I'm a subject matter expert and I'm bloody good at what I do. I'm very good at what I do. And I use my chest and my shoulders to tell you that. I do not know everything. But prepared to learn the things I don't know. And I'm coming to you in the true essence of wanting to learn. One thing is for sure. When you're going into an interview with me and you're interviewing me, if you don't want to give me that role, it's either because you fear that I will shake the foundation of the role that you're in because I know more than you, or I was despondent in the interview and therefore I didn't want the job. I was just going there just to say I went to interview. Those are the only 2 reasons. It can't be because of experience, because experience is 10 out of 10. It can't be for technical skill and knowledge, because that one is 10 out of 10. It can't be for lack of experience, that one is 10 out of 10. And it can't be for lack of knowledge in a particular industry, because that one is 10 out of 10. Because I've given them no maneuver, no room to tell me no. I'm giving you no reason. And this is how you have to lead in your career. Don't give people the reason to say no. make it difficult for them to say no. And there's going to be roles you're just not going to get because maybe they just don't like you. Maybe they just think, I don't want to hire this person. But for me, when I go into interviews, I go there with a purpose. My purpose is I'm going to answer the questions, I'm going to draw my own experience, and I'm going to utilize the fact that I'm a remote worker. So for example, I've got this writing thing. I don't know what it's made of. And I put buzzwords on there. So when they're asking me questions, I make sure I use some of my buzzwords. Now, if I was going to an interview face-to-face, I will still take a notebook and put those buzzwords in there. And I'll be taking notes or pretending to take notes. I'll be looking at the buzzwords. Some of you guys don't know how to use an interview to your own advantage, you know. There used to be interviews I used to go to. I'm not even going to lie to you. I'll just go blank. Because of the stress of getting on that flipping DLR to go to the meeting. Maybe I'm stuck in a tunnel for 10 minutes. By the time I get to that interview, I'm tired. So I'm going blank because I'm dehydrated. I'm going blank because my nose is running, because I'm stressed, because I'm sweating. So now that we are all in a position whereby we can now utilize our environments, when you're going to an interview, don't you dare go to an interview without a notepad. The notepad is so important that in the Toya Talks collaboration with Dreams and Purpose, I released 2 notepads. So you can't say that you don't know how important notepads are. I'm releasing it as part of my collection. So what's that? Take a notepad. Write down bullet points of buzzwords you need to say in the interview. Then when you're doing your interview, I do it all the time. You know when you go to interview and you say, I'm just going to take a couple of notes as well, just in case I've got any questions at the end. Watch them. The interviewers, they get uncomfortable because they never would have imagined that an interviewee is coming to take notes. Because I don't know what you're writing. You too, you don't know what they are writing. You interview me, I'm interviewing you. And that's what I lead with. I'm going into an interview. It's not about, are you going to give me the job? Do I want your job? Do I even want it though? I'm even coming here to do fact-finding mission. You think it's only you coming to do fact-finding? You've got to be confident enough to understand the structure of an interview. Not every job that I'm offered after interview stage do I accept. Some people, every job they're offered, they accept. Every single job. But when you're asking them, why do you accept the job? Because I need a job. That's not a reason. Not for a career person. If you are career orientated, that can't be your reason. If you're not career orientated and you just want a job to get paid, that's different. But we need to differentiate between the two. Are you a jobber or are you career? Choose. In my early 20s, I was a jobber. I was a jobber because I was just trying to pay my T-Mobile bill. After uni, I was career. I've got to be honest. After uni, I was because I suffered in uni. And somebody told me that there's a treasure chest of honey and milk and money. So I said to myself, I have to be career. If you decide that you're career, then the way you approach job and job interview has to be different. Very different. Please, don't email me asking me about tips to do with interviews because I'm going to ignore you. I feel like that's provocation because there's a whole ass masterclass on interview skills. There's a whole ass masterclass on CVs. So don't send me your CV here. I don't do CV writing service. I've told you people. I don't do it. You know how difficult CVs are? Let me tell you. It's a drag, innit? When you have to go and update your CV. This is why I say to you guys on the CV masterclass, every quarter you should be updating your CV. If you wait to the end of your job, maybe you've been there 4 years, you're not even going to have motivation to update that CV. You know Deborah? Deborah was even saying to me she needs to update her CV. I said to her, Deborah, where are you going to start? She said, I don't know, Toya. I've been dragging my feet. This woman has been on this project for 15 months. So how is she going to even remember what she's done in 15 months? You're not. That's why every quarter, you know what I do? Because I know myself, in my notebook, every time I learn something new that I didn't know before, I write in a notebook. So that at the end of the quarter, I'll go in that notebook and already the notes are there to put on the CV. That's how I do it. If you're going to wait until after your contract assignment for 9 months, you're not going to update it properly because you're not going to remember. If you're a perm or fixed term employee, I guarantee you, Maybe you've been in the role for 3-4 years. You're not going to remember the things you've done in 3-4 years to update your CV. Better build in quarterly review. You see how your organizations will be doing quarterly reviews on your objectives? Use that to do your own personal quarterly review on your CV. If you want to make money in your career, you have to have this strategy. We don't become 6-figure babe, 7-figure babe just for cruising. There's work that goes behind it. That's why when people are using their jagged, decaying teeth to come and chat shit to me about, oh, you know, Toya, you know, it's luck. The way I drag that girl, she knows anyway. There's no luck around here. Who is luck? Please show me who is luck and lucky. Tell me. I put work into my career and I'm reaping the benefits of it. And then I'm using the platform to teach you how to sow into your career and reap the benefits. You guys know, I told you recently, I built a house. I built a house in this here England, this London here. But if I didn't sow the seeds into my career, how would I be able to then harvest the benefits of my career to be able to do certain things like build a house, like have nice things? How would I be able to do it? And don't get it twisted, yeah. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you. It's not easy. Well, I don't have to. You guys see what I've been through. There's traumas that I've been through in my early 20s, some that I haven't even had the opportunity to come here and discuss. Our shoulders are heavy. So you have to decide, is this job or is this career? If it's job, no problem. You just take anything. If it's career, you lead with strategy. Point blank and a period. A recruiter said to me a couple of weeks ago, oh, you don't have LinkedIn. Oh, your chances are slim. Really? I said, well, that CV that you have in your hands, I don't have a LinkedIn. And I've been able to not only get roles, but this is the day rate I currently command. He was there stuttering like a fool. LinkedIn isn't for everybody. Let me tell you something about LinkedIn. I've got a dummy page. It's not even my name. It's just a dummy page. If I want to see what's happening in the market, I'll go there. Or if I look for a role there and I see the agency who's dealing with the role, I take the agency details, I call them directly. That's how I use it. Because for me, LinkedIn is just an adult career Facebook, and I personally don't like it. I have a friend who all his jobs, all his contracts come from LinkedIn. He loves it. He so loves it. And that's great. But for me, I feel like it just doesn't, I don't like it. It just makes me a bit uncomfortable. I don't want people to know where I worked and then all the people you've worked with before. That's too much information, in my personal opinion. There's some industries that you guys need LinkedIn. The reason I'm saying this to you is just to let you guys know that there's many different ways to get a role. It's not just LinkedIn. It's also leveraging some of those relationships with agencies and people maybe you've worked for in the past. So for example, my old boss, Caroline, she's like head of da-da-da-da-da. She was recently made CEO and head of da-da-da-da-da. She reached out to me. She goes, Toya, are you on the market? I need a senior commercial contract manager to whip these people into shape. I said, no, I'm not around. Sorry. I said, I've had a couple of offers. I'm even confused with those ones. So let me just get my head around these ones. I said, call me in 6 months. Let's have a chat. She goes, yeah, I'll call you in 6 months. And I'm looking for a head of. So if you're looking for a permanent role, I said, no, I'm not doing perm. Can you see how you have relationship with people? Don't ever think that Deborah's going to go somewhere. She's not going to call me. Deborah's calling me in 6 months' time. Yeah, she's going to put a team together. She's going to call me. I know that. So that's how I network. That's my interpretation of network, because I don't like conventional networking, not with my social anxiety and the way it's set up. I don't like that. The reason I'm saying all of this to you is to let you know that, number one, there are options. You've got to be able to place yourself in a situation where you have options. Some people, you place yourself in a situation where you don't have any, and therefore whatever is offered to you, just take it without doing any due diligence, without having a strategy. Lastly, I do want to say this, and I feel like I've said this before, but maybe I'm not saying it enough. You know, I studied law. For all intents and purposes, I was going to be a lawyer, okay? I'd gone to law school, I did my master's in law, passed, obviously did my degree, passed law school, did my master's, and then I started to do my training contract. I had some exemptions, so I had a 6-month exemption, and I was 6 months into my training contract, and I decided that this wasn't for me. And I feel like some people feel like if you do certain careers, that's all you can do, if that makes sense. So, all intents and purposes, I was training to be a lawyer, wasn't I? And now, I'm a senior commercial contract consultant. And I earn more money than some of my lawyer friends who we studied at the same time. And I feel as though I have a wider understanding of the commercial space in a way that some of my friends don't, because obviously they went on to become lawyers and they specialised in certain areas, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I really love the fact that I've got options. I can work in different industries in a way that some of my friends can't really pivot. I want you guys to really appreciate the fact that just because you're in a particular field doesn't mean you can't pivot. So, for example, one of my friends, he studied architecture, so obviously he's an architect, but he does a lot of freelance stuff as well. And he works, there's a particular organisation that he works for, and I think he's been there for about 6-7 months now, and he's able to pivot in different types of architecture. So he works with also developers as well. So for example, I built my house, right? So I needed to work with an architect, and he was able to recommend an architect for me to work with, like a freelance architect, and the developer had their own. You understand what I'm trying to say? So he hasn't just restricted himself to just be working with a particular organisation and dealing with architecture. He does other freelance stuff outside of that. So he works with, for example, new build developments who maybe have got planning permission or are applying for planning permission to deal with the planning stage of how they're going to use that land. He gets involved in that as well. He doesn't just do the stereotypical architecture. So he's earning a lot more money and he's getting a lot more experience, and he's finding that there's certain opportunities that have been afforded to him because he was able to pivot. And him and I were having that discussion, and he was saying, Toya, it's funny, isn't it? Because we went and we studied one thing, and people think, okay, this is what they're going to be doing. But we're able to pivot and do other things outside of that and still grow, gain success, and gain money. Because ultimately, anyone who sits in front of you and says that part of it is not about money is talking shit. My thing is, it can't just be centered on money. It has to be centered on other things, because through those other things, the money will come. Please, please, please do not pigeonhole yourself. Allow yourself to be given the opportunity to pivot. And the only way that's going to happen is if you're able to have different experience in different industries, be able to position yourself in a way that if a certain industry was dried up, you're able to pivot and go and try something else within your industry, if that makes sense. So I'm going to leave it there, and I'm going to say, those who have ears, let them hear. I hope you receive the messaging in this episode, and I feel very prompted to deliver this episode. Something said to me, you know what, you have to deliver this episode. There's somebody who needs this, or many people that need this. So hopefully that this has really helped you out. I also want to just cover something. So already we know that the royal family, I really don't understand what's going on with them. I really don't. And I do question, in my personal opinion, the importance of the monarchy. They're very problematic. When Prince Philip, and I say Prince, and I use all these titles, so that we can differentiate who we're talking about. It's not that I think they're really princing. Prince William used his mouth. He used his gargoyle head, to open his jazz mouth to say that, and I'm paraphrasing here, allegedly, that it's a bit alien to see war in the Ukraine or Europe, because they're used to seeing it in Africa and Asia. Willie, have you ever gone to your mother's treasure chest all those riches and jewels in her vault? How did she get them? You're talking about, oh, we're not used to seeing war. In school, didn't we study the Battle of Hastings and all these battle of that? So you didn't know all of that. You didn't know. So you didn't realize there's also war in Europe. You didn't know. But you didn't know that it's your forefathers that invaded a lot of these countries and warred with them to get the riches and raw materials from that country. So you don't know. What pisses me off about William's statement is that as he's using his mouth to chat shit, he doesn't want to talk about his uncle, Prince Andrew. He doesn't want to talk about that. He doesn't want to talk about that. You're coming here to tell us you're not used to seeing the war. How can you be used to seeing war? When you was in uni, was you studying? What was you doing there? What was you doing? So upon all this eating you've been doing, you didn't read history. What kind of bullshit is that? And it's this behavior that I cannot take. You know when Oyubo people will start saying, they start pleading ignorance. That's the ignorance people were giving Prince Philip. Philip would just be talking rubbish, but they were putting it to old age. I don't know, with William, what we're putting it down to? Stupidity? Go and knock on that Buckingham Palace and go to the vault. Go and see the product of war that this country started to be able to get those jewels and riches into that your granny's crown. What kind of rubbish is that? Talking with your dry lips. Talking with your dry lips. You're coming to say, we're not used to seeing well, it's like only in Africa and Asia. Are you not mad and dumb and stupid for that? What's all that? Sometimes I feel like the monarchy just needs to face their front. If you're not going to address your uncle Andrew, then you just shut it up. Shut up! Shut it up! Okay? Nonsense. Kanye West. You know what I'm going to say? And this is, I said it, I posted it on Instagram. I'm going to say this. The way that Kanye West is being treated by the media and the way the Kardashian family are using the media as puppets to paint Kanye West out to be mad is disgraceful. But I do not blame them. I blame Kanye. And let me tell you why. Kanye will confidently open his mouth through the wire and open his mouth to tell you he gave Kim and the Kardashians the culture. Who did you get permission from? Who in the community did you go to give permission to give it? Who is it yours to give? They've appropriated the shit out of our culture. They've appropriated everything. And now we're picking up the pieces for what you decided to give them that wasn't yours in the first place to give. Now you want to gaslight. Now you want to tap in your black community to come and advocate and cover you. The answer is no from my side anyway. Because when you decided to put our culture in the dustbin for the Kardashians, you made a choice. What made you think, Kanye, that you're so special? After all the debris of black men that have gone through the Kardashians and ended up, if not mad, but losing it all, what made you think, Kanye, that you were going to be treated any better? Then you have Kim Kardashian's boyfriend that looks as though, that man looks as though he pissed and shit himself in these clothes and he wears them. That man that looks as though if you put him in a shower, if you shower him, the plug will be blocked for all the dirt. This is a man that's coming, her boyfriend has the guts to tell you he's in her bed. That's the level in which you've placed yourself, Kanye. So all this problem that you're seeing now, Kim is doing this or she's not doing that. When you decided to put your culture in the bin and you chose them, that's what you chose. Your muse is Kim Kardashian. She's musing now. You are using her as muse. She's musing. So as for me, he gets no sympathy whatsoever. And don't get it twisted. I'm not saying that the things he's saying is not credible. But I'm not gonna be fighting a good fight on Clubhouse. Fighting a good fight on social media for you. Nah, this is your fight. You put your foot in the shoe. You must walk in it. And let it be a lesson let it be a lesson. If you're going to marry a non-black woman, she doesn't automatically tap into black culture because she's married to you. That's not how it goes. You do not lend the culture to a non-black person. It's not to be lent. Why is it that we treat our community and our culture as such a cheap commodity that we lend it to people? Our culture and our community is so rich that these people are dying just to smell it. Then we cheapen it by just giving it to them. And you know what I tend to find? Is the black men. I'm talking to you. Not all of you, some of you. Some of you black men, you choose to be with non-black women. That's not a problem. But what you're not going to do is then trash us black women, talk shit, do all sorts of things. Then when the non-black woman shows you pepe, then you realize that you're a black man. No, you are who you said you was to that person. What you're never going to do, Kanye, is pull the wool over our eyes as a community. No. No. Is it Lamar Odom? Is it, what's that one that Kim married and divorced in 72 hours? There's so many of them. Kanye West gave Kim Kardashian a shareholder. He made her a shareholder, so he gave her shares in Yeezys. That's when I knew that this man is stupid. I'm sorry. When it comes to business acumen, I have always respected Kanye West for his business acumen. Ask my friend, one of my friends, she calls me Toya, because I always used to talk about Kanye West's business acumen. I think it's amazing. Then I lost all sorts of respect when he gave Kim Kardashian shares and made her a shareholder in Yeezys. This man is not a shareholder in Skims. This man is not a shareholder in the silicone in her butt, allegedly. This man doesn't have shareholders. He's not a shareholder in her appropriation. He is the giver, innit? So upon the multi-millions that you have made, Kim has never come to the table to ask you to go be a shareholder. You took Yeezys and made her a shareholder. Then you're coming now to cry that your muse is musing. Go and sit down, please. Take several seats. Take several seats. That's all I'm going to say. Let what is happening be an example to everybody of what happens when you lose your identity in a relationship with somebody who is not coming to the table with as much as you. Let this be an example to people who don't seem to understand. When you're with somebody who is and I'm talking from a perspective of a black person here, as I'm a black woman, you're in a relationship with a non-black person, you're raising a family with them. You can't take the culture and give it to them because it's not yours to give. You can teach them, you can educate them, you can't give them, and you have to let them know that you're not part of the culture because you're married to me. What you are is married to me, and my culture is a package of who I am, but my culture is not who you are. Simple. Anyway, guys and girls, I'm going to leave it there. Those who have ears, let them hear. I hope that you receive the messaging in this podcast episode. I want to thank each and every one of you for your support, your love, your ability to receive the messages that I am communicating in each podcast episode. If you haven't already, I'm going to encourage you to acquaint yourself with some of the older episodes, especially for people who are quite new. I do leave comprehensive show notes, so it's clear about the content of a particular episode. I also will say that I have had a few dilemmas, and I thought that I'd have some time to go through some dilemmas today, but I don't. So next week's episode is going to be a dilemma episode from start to finish. So if you have a work-related dilemma that you would like us to discuss here on the Toy Talks podcast, your anonymity will be protected. Let me just explain. I will not give your name, email address, or anything that is identifiable to you. It's all anonymous, and that's why I say that your anonymity will be protected. Please email hello@toyatalks.com. That's hello@toyatalks.com. I've been getting a lot of inquiries about public speaking events in certain organisations. I would encourage you to obviously go to the website, toyatalks.com. That's www.toyatalks.com. to see kind of a lot of what Toy Talks does and things like that. If you and your organisation are interested in booking me, then email hello@toytalks.com, and my assistant Jennifer, she's amazing. She'll be able to ask you certain questions and facilitate an initial call, and then she'll deal with the booking and things like that. I'm on social media. If you don't follow me, follow me. So TikTok, I took a bit of a break from TikTok just with everything going on. I've just been really, really busy, and I'm back on the TikTok now. So make sure you follow me on TikTok, and my handle is Toya Washington, and it's all one word, all lowercase, Toya Washington. And I want to thank everybody who leaves messages on TikTok. The views that I get on TikTok are amazing, so make sure you go and follow me on TikTok. I am very, very active on Instagram, especially Instagram stories, and my Instagram name is Toya_Washington. I cannot wait to upload the 2 new masterclasses, and I just want to thank you guys for your patience. It's just been a lot. There's a lot going on, but it's worth the wait. And you guys know that anything I put my name to is done to the highest level. So if you have purchased some of the masterclasses before, then you'll know that it's top tier only. If it isn't top tier, I'm not putting it out. That's just the way I roll, okay? So the 2 new masterclasses that are imminently about to be released, you're gonna absolutely love, because I love them and I'm passionate about this platform and everything we teach and everything we learn, all the tools that I teach. I'm so passionate. So I just again want to thank you for your patience. You guys will remember I mentioned that I'm going to do a remote masterclass. Next week I'm going to announce the date of that remote masterclass. Next week I'm going to announce when the tickets are going to be released, and they're limited tickets. It's going to be a remote masterclass. You guys will be able, you know how you do it on Zoom, but it will be a different platform because I won't be using Zoom. And I will be teaching you guys how to review and mark up an employment contract, how to negotiate certain clauses. I will explain certain clauses, and we'll go through a couple of employment stuff. So that is coming. Next week will be the announcement of when the tickets will be released and the actual date of that remote masterclass. And once the tickets are gone, they're gone. I'm not going to put any more up. They are limited tickets, so make sure you go onto my social media, you check it regularly, and of course the Toy Talks podcast as well. Whatever platform you're listening to the podcast on, please rate and review. If you're listening to the podcast on Apple Podcast, I know you can rate and review on there, and of course on Spotify. It really does help me out, and also it helps out new prospective listeners as well, so make sure you go and do that. I'm going to leave it there, and I'm going to see you guys next week. We're going to have a dilemma episode. I'm really looking forward to it because there's quite a few dilemmas and a lot of people that need some advice, so I'll be looking forward to delivering that. As much as possible, make sure you share the podcast. Word of mouth has been my greatest marketing tool when it has come to the Toy Talks podcast and platform. And I really do appreciate each and every one of you for sharing the podcast, sharing the content, talking about it in your WhatsApp group chat. I really appreciate you guys. So thank you so much. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Toy Talks podcast. My name is Toya Washington, and you have been listening to the Toy Talks podcast.